Babes, and welcome to my book nook.
We are monsters. We give and we take.
If you're new around here, the name's Rainy. I read all types of books, primarily fantasy romance, so if you're interested in that, please like and subscribe to my channel down below. Now, in today's video, I will admit, I caught the R fantasy bingo FOMO, if you will, because I failed epically at last year's. Like, I didn't even keep track. I'm not going to put on the board how well I did on the screen unless I get, like, really bored. I know I did bad. Like, really, really bad. And so I was like, okay, I don't need to do it this year. But my problem with last year was I put a lot of books, but it was like I had no plans for them. I didn't know when I was going to read them. I put books that I didn't even own, and like, that was just kind of difficult. However, all my friends are doing it. Even Leandra's doing it. Brittany's doing it. Everybody's doing it. And I figured maybe I could make it work this year. But the R fantasy bingo prompts are mother freaking hard this year. I had a hard ass time deciding on these things. So I've made my bingo board. I feel pretty good about it. There's one or two that I feel like I could still switch out by the time we get to it as more recommendations come in on Reddit, but we're just going to go with this. If you happen to not know what our fantasy bingo is, it is hosted on Reddit. I will put all of the information underneath this video, but basically you can do fantasy, sci-fi, or horror. I always do romantasy because there's the fantasy plot in it. And you read those types of books and you do a bingo board, and it's fun, and it runs from April to April every year until the new one just came out. And so, like I said, I'll link under everything underneath here in case you're interested in trying it out with us. But with that being said, let's dive into the TBR, because there's a lot of books and I'm not going to share like my whole life story with each book, or we'll be here forever. Also, my kids are like raging chaos little gremlins, so like keep that in mind if you hear them. I should also point out that like there's a hard mode and a hero mode and an easy mode. Obviously I go for hard mode. Hero mode is just reviewing every book that you read, which I can do, but obviously I go for hard mode. And so because of that, there are a lot of books that just don't fit it. It's very upsetting. So the first one is Knights and Paladins, and of course the book had to feature a knight or a paladin, but in order for it to be hard mode, they had to also be carrying some sort of secret or like have an oath that they're sworn to. And I've heard that this book works for it because Leandra put it for it, and I'm assuming it works, and that is Swordheart by T. Kingfisher. I'm actually doing a buddy read of this with her, Danny, and Nell at the end of the month, so I'm hoping to get to this. Now, I do have a hard track record with T. Kingfisher. I hate and love her books, so I'm hoping this one is good. But this one's supposed to be more of a cozy-ish fantasy romance about a girl that tries to unalive herself but ends up making up a genie who is designed to be her bodyguard and protector. And it is their cute little friendship, love story. I don't really know, but we're gonna find out together. Then we have Hidden Gem, and it has to be a book that has under 1,000 ratings. But in order for it to be hard mode, it had to be 5 years or older, like 2020. And that was so freaking hard. Like, when I tell you how hard that was, it took me forever, and I was about ready to replace this because with this board you're allowed to have one substitution from like a different year bingo board. But Hermione fan fictions came through, and I own a couple, and I was like, there's gotta be one out in the world whiz wide web that has less than 1,000 ratings and has been out for a while. And I finally found one thanks to TikTok and YouTube. Thank you. And it is called Parade of the Sun. Do I remember what it's about? No. I do remember that I was intrigued by the synopsis, and it was only like 3 sentences, so I'm just going to read it for you really quick. Floralis Thati is a plant with the power to control time, hidden in the wild, and protected by a magic that strips people of their own while seeking to kill them. Hermione wants it to save the world. Draco wants it to save himself. Sometimes what we want can destroy us, and sometimes it can build us new again. That sounds good to me, and it has a 4.15 and 362 ratings and came out in 2012. However, it is 994 pages long. I'm slightly worried about that. I also need to make sure that I actually can still get it on Archive of Our Own because a lot of people took their books off. So if I can't access it, well, oops-a-scoops. Oops-a-scoops. All right. Moving on. The next one had to be a book that was published in the 80s, but hard mode was that it had to be from a person of color. And after searching and searching and searching, all I could find was like Octavia Butler and what is it called? The Color Purple and stuff. And I didn't want to read those books. So I ultimately replaced this one. This is the one that I placed on the bingo board, and I replaced it with one from 2023, Angels and Demons, where the book had to feature angel and demons, and the hard mode was the protagonist had to be an angel or demon themselves. And so for that, we went with Small Miracles by Olivia Atwater. I've heard good stuff about this from Bree. I've heard good stuff about this from Leandra. I don't know if this is going to be a rainy book, but we're going to try it. But our main dude, Gabriel, is an angel, and he's on some sort of mission, and I don't really know more than that, and I'm not going to find out more than that. So we're just going to give it a whirl. The next one was high fashion, and you had to read a book where clothing or fashion are important to the plot, or hard mode was the main character had to make clothes or fibers. And I'm so glad that Bree reminded me that the main character in this series does exactly that. And so I will be continuing on with this Woven Kingdom and reading These Infinite Threads by Tahara Mafi. I read the first book 2 months ago, absolutely loved it, tabbed it up, had a great time, so I'm very excited to continue on with book 2 and hopefully finish up this series before book 4 comes out at the end of the year. I am loving this. It is a cute little romantasy, very slow burn, and I mean like so slow burn. We are not even with what I think is the main love interest yet, but it's fine. I'm very much here for it. Then we have Down with the System, which is to read a book in which a main plot revolves around disrupting a system, but it cannot be a governmental system, which was so freaking hard. And I ended up going with Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wong, which I have to read anyway for my collab with Leandra, Kelsey, and Brittany. I'm only 10% in, so I was able to count it still. This one has to do more with like cultural systems that are being disrupted. And so, you know what? If other people say that this counts, then it counts, okay? I'm not gonna justify myself. The next one was Impossible Places, and you had to read a book set in a location that would break a physicist, but the hard mode was at least 50% of the book has to take place within the improbable place. And so I thought, okay, a fairy fae court would count, right? Because that's not anywhere that I could travel physically. And so once again, work smarter, not harder. I went with a book that I literally have to read for a secret project coming out in July, and that is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I have to read this. I haven't read this yet. I know it's a very fan favorite, beloved romantasy. I haven't gotten to it yet. And all I know is it says, Jude was 7 when her parents were murdered. She and her 2 sisters were stolen away to live in the High Court of Fairy. 10 years later, Jude wants nothing more than to belong there, but many of the Fae despise humans, especially Prince Carden, the youngest and wickedest son of the High King. Is this a, like, MMC double romance? I didn't know that. How did I not know that? Also, Eloise has gotten to the cover, as you can tell with her purple marker. She's a fast one. Then we have a book in parts. Read a book that is separated into large sections within the main text. This includes things like acts, parts, days, years, and so on, but has to be more than just chapter breaks. And hard mode, the book has 4 or more parts. So I am assuming that this book has 4 or more parts because the first book had 5 parts. So if it doesn't, I'll pick a new book. That is The Bonds That Burn by Briar Bolin. This is the second book in the On Wings of Blood series, which I ate this book up. It is coming to you in a vlog very soon. It is a new up-and-coming vampire, dark academia, magical school romantasy. That's bully romance. And I love it so much. I love it so much. It's my best book of the year so far. It is absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. 5 million stars. So I have to continue on with the sequel, and I'm going to hope that this one works out for that prompt. Then we have Gods and Pantheons, where you have to read a book featuring divine beings, but the hard mode is that there are multiple pantheons involved. And once again, this was a freaking hard thing. Like, I tell you, this year, they were not effing around, okay? They weren't. But luckily, my friends were able to confirm that this book works. And that is God Killer by Hannah Kaner. I finally have an excuse to read this. I have bought the first 2 books, and I don't even know if I'm going to like this. Brittany and Julie are convinced that this is not a rainy read, and Leandra too. So I hope I can at least get through it, because it's only like 280 pages. But I don't know a lot. I know there's gods. I know there's a lot of things going on, okay? But it has a very beautiful cover. Then we have the last in a series to read the final entry in a series, and hard mode is the series is 4 or more books long. I knew exactly which book I was going to read because I desperately need to finish out this series. And that is The Queen That's Fierce and Deadly by Stasia Stark. I've been holding off on this because 1, it is a chunker, and because 2, I absolutely hated the book before this. Like, gave it a 2, maybe 2.5 star, and I've given the rest of the books 4, 4.5 stars, so it was kind of upsetting. And I've heard that this does not necessarily have like the greatest ending ever, which has made me hold off, but I should just finish it. I should, but it's like 630 pages, so like, I'm not itching to pick it up. But I guess this is the year to finish. Then we move on to book club or read-along books. So you have to read a book that was or is officially a group read on our fantasy on Reddit. But the hard mode is that you have to read and participate in a book club or read-along during the bingo year. And I'm just keeping that on here. I was originally going to swap it out and replace it, but obviously we replaced the 80s one, so I have to have it on here. But since I don't know what books are going to be on their read-alongs list yet, I can't put a book. So that's what you get for that. Then we are on the 3rd row, and we have Parent Protagonist, which is to read a book where a main character has a child to care for. The child does not have to be biologically related, but the hard mode is that they are also a major character in the story. And this would have been really hard had the recommendations list not pulled through for me. And I will be getting to Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong. Hopefully, I love Blood Over Brighthaven, and then I'm even more excited to read this. But I've heard that even if you're not a huge fantasy girly, that this is just so good, okay? I've heard it's beautiful, I've heard it's sad, I've heard it's magical, and I need to know why all the girlies are loving it so much. Then we have Epistolary, and the book must prominently feature any of the following: diary or journal entries, letters, messages, newspaper clippings, transcripts, and the hard mode is the book is told entirely in epistolary format. And there is a book that works for this, and that is Dracula by Bram Stoker, and I have never read it. Crazy. And I love vampires, and I've read a lot of stuff. What's even more exciting is that Jan Agaton happened to announce today in her Patreon that we are going to be doing a Dracula read-along, but we're doing it the daily Dracula way. Apparently, the book starts on May 3rd and goes all the way to November 7th and is told through journal entries and things like that. And you can read it daily, meaning on the day that, because it goes chronologically, on the day that the events happen, you can read the book that way. And so we are going to be doing that, and I'm going to be reading it from May to November. And I'm so freaking excited. Then we have published in 2025, and has to be a book published for the first time in 2025. And the hard mode is, it's also a debut novel, as in the author's first published novel. And that one was also hard, but I found Green Teeth by Molly O'Neill. Now, this is a cozy fantasy. We've learned those aren't always my journey. However, I did love The Honey Witch and the Spell Shop. But Leanne really liked this, and that's also kind of concerning. However, the cover is so cute. The story seems so cute. It really spoke to me, okay? And so we're just gonna hope that this falls in the cozy fantasy books that Rainy loves and enjoys. Then we have author of color, which is read a book by a person of color, and the hard mode is it had to be a horror novel. Now that's not difficult for me, because I love a good horror novel, but I know that was hard for other people. And for mine, we're going to go with The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim, because I've been very excited in reading this book. I just am very, very, very intrigued. I know that it's about a girl and her family that all of a sudden she just starts wanting to eat eyes or something like that. I don't know. She becomes murderous. It's very unhinged. It's short and sweet. So let's give it a go. Then we have small press or self-published, which is to read a book published by a small press, not one of the big five or Bloomsbury, or self-published. And then hard mode is the book has under 100 ratings on Goodreads or is written by a marginalized author. Now that was also tricky. And I realized I might have done this wrong. It has to have under 100 ratings. Oh, phooey. Oh, phooey. Go away. I thought that said 1,000. No. Okay. I'll be right back. I looked on my shelves, and it's going to take me a little bit longer to find a book for this prompt than I have. If I happen to find one by the time I'm editing this video, I will pop it up right here, but I will have something probably written by a marginalized author, because the under 100 ratings thing is throwing me for a loop. The next one is Biopunk, which is to read a book that focuses on biotechnology and or its consequences, and hard mode is there is no electricity-based technology. And Brittany shared this, and I immediately was like, perfect. And that is Jurassic Park. You are allowed one reread, so this is my reread. And I'm actually about to do a reread anyway, because if you missed the announcement last week, me and Leandra, I announced it on my channel, are doing a Jurassic Park read-along and watch-along. The read-along is public, May and June. The watch-along is private for our Patreons. You're always welcome to join. But we are going to be reading this, and a lot of people are joining with us for the first time. You're always welcome to join. But I am so excited that this worked for this! Then we have Elves and or Dwarves to read a book that features the classical fantasy archetypes of elves and or dwarves. They don't have to fit the classic tropes, but must be either named as elves and or dwarves or be easily identified as such. And hard mode is the main character is an elf or a dwarf. And once again, thanks Bree from 4 Paws in a Book for pointing out that this book works for this. I have no idea where my copy went, so I'm just going to put it on the screen. But that is Flame and Sparrow by S.M. Gaither. I need to read this anyway in preps for Villains and Vixens because she's going to be there and I do want to meet her. But the main character is an elf. I've been meaning to read this for a while. So this is what's going to happen. Then we have LGBTQIA Protagonist, which is to read a book where a main character is under the LGBTQ plus umbrella. Hard mode is they're marginalized on at least one additional axis, such as being a person of color, disabled, a member of an ethnic, religious, or cultural minority, all of that sort of stuff. And somebody said in the Reddit thread that evocation works for this because they're LGBTQIA and they're disabled. So we're gonna go with that. Now, I did start this like a month or two ago, but I only got 64 pages in, which is not over the 50% mark, so we're gonna count it. It is an S.T. Gibson book, and it is an S.T. Gibson book that I'm not live, laugh, loving like I did Education in Malice and A Dowry of Blood. But we're gonna keep going and hope that it gets a little better from there. Then we have 5 SFF short stories. Any short speculative fiction story, as long as there's 5 of them, and then hard mode would be to read an entire anthology or collection. And so I figured it was finally time to read Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. I know that each story is based off of a different body part and that it's very weird and creepy and that she writes hauntingly beautiful, like, non-fiction short stories. And so I am excited to see what the hype is all about. Then we have Stranger in a Strange Land, which is to read a book that deals with being a foreigner in a new culture. And the hard mode is the main character has to be an immigrant or a refugee. And the only book that I could think of initially was Blood Over Brighthaven, but then someone else said a book that, once again, I own. And that is Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. Now, I picked this up forever ago because of Reagan from Peru's project, because she was, like, obsessed with it. However, I've since learned she's a huge epic fantasy girly, and alas, I am not, so I don't really know if I'm going to like this or not. But, it is signed. Wait. For Grandma, much love. Oh, he signed it to someone's grandma. I was about to say, this is from his grandma, and she got rid of it? The nerve of that lady. Anyway, I do know that this is about him and his wife, and they go to the Tower of Babel for their honeymoon, and then she disappears, and he's stuck there for several books, so he's traveling from abroad. And he's a refugee, okay? Now, I've heard that you have to stretch this one a little, but we're gonna go with it. And we're on the final row, which starts with Recycle a Bingo Square, which is to use a square from a previous year, as long as it doesn't repeat one on the current card, and the hard mode is to do the hard mode for that square. So with that, I picked one from 2024, which I'm pretty sure was to judge a book by its cover and to pick a book that you chose based on its cover, but the hard mode is you can't read the blurb. And I'm not gonna lie, I read the blurb like 6 months ago, and I don't remember. I read the blurb even a month ago, and I don't remember what this book was about. And that is the book for my Patreon book club that month, and this month. And it is The Wraith King by Juliet Cross. Do I remember what this ish is about? No. But do I know that I bought this for this stunning, stunning cover? Heck yes. Then we have Cozy SSF, which cozy is up to your preferences for what you find comforting, but the genre typically features relatable characters, low stakes, minimal conflict, and a happy ending. Hard mode is the author is new to you. So we went with a cozy special edition that I have, Howl's Moving Castle by Deanna Wynne Jones. Now, this is just beautiful. Now, they have done the next book in the series since then, but I only collected this first one because, like, I didn't know if I was absolutely going to love it, but, like, it is still very pretty. I don't know anything about this. I've never even watched it, but I says, how about making a bargain with me, said the demon. I'll break your spell if you agree to break this contract I'm under. It looks very cozy, okay? It fits the vibe. Then we have generic title, which is to read a book that has one or more of the following words in the title. Blood, bone, broken court, dark, shadow, song, sword, or throne. Plurals allowed. Hard mode is the title has to contain more than one of the listed words, or contains at least one word and a color, a number, or an animal. And so for this one, I don't know where that book went, but it's A Court of Blood and Bindings by Lisette Marshall, and I've heard that, like, it has color magic and it's very interesting, and I've been putting it off for a while, and so I would love to finally be able to get to it. We have Not a Book. Do something new besides reading a book, and hard mode is to write and post a review to our fantasy. And so I'm going to be crocheting finally. I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna do the dang deed. I want to learn to crochet. I want to learn to crochet, okay? I was even given a crochet bag for Christmas from, like, a gift-giving book club, so I need to get my ish together. And then the last one is Pirates. Read a book where characters engage in piracy, but of course it can't be a seafaring pirate, because that would be too mother-freaking easy. Sorry, my dryer is kind of being a demon right now, so if you hear it, like, I'm sorry. Also, I don't know where I put this book, and I literally just bought it, so, oh, there it is. I'm gonna go with this because Leandra said it was okay on hers, and that's Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. And I'm actually very excited. I bought this and picked it up because it had really good ratings on Goodreads, but didn't even realize that they are literally, like, filming a movie for it right now. So, like, that means it's gotta be good. They killed my mother, they took our magic, they tried to bury us, and now we rise. I've heard that it's gonna be like Hunger Games level amazing, and I need to get into that. And that is all the books that I'm going to be reading for our fantasy bingo. This is the bingo board in its entirety. Let me know what you're thinking. If you got to the end of this, comments down below. Let's put a pirate emoji because we ended with a piratey book. And let me know, are you participating in our fantasy bingo? What type of genre are you going to be primarily reading? I'm excited to see what you have to read as well. And if you have any better recommendations for me to try. And once again, I'd like to give a thank you to my wonderful patrons in my Friends Themed Patreon. You are the reason that I do what I do, and I love you so very much. If you're ever interested in joining us, you can always get the information down below. We have extra sprints, extra readathons, exclusive content, all of the fun things. And also make sure to like and subscribe to my channel. You can follow me on all social media platforms at rainybluereads. And with that, my friends, I will see you in a video very soon.